ago, twin car bombs exploded in a shopping district, and that in a mainly Shiite district of the capital.
Nearly 70 people have been killed and over 100 injured. On Friday, though, Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki praised what he described as the brilliant success of Baghdad's new security plan. But as our correspondent Hoda Abdel Hamid explained, the bombers managed to get through one of the checkpoints without being searched.
Now, from what we understand also from our security sources, the two men driving these two car bombs actually managed to drive through one of the hundreds of checkpoints that are around the capital because of the security plan. The Iraqi security forces manning those security checkpoints did not check that car, and the two cars managed to reach that market here in central Baghdad before detonating. Prime Minister Maliki had been very cautious about the security plan. All along he had told Iraqis that they will not see any results before a few months at least, and that probably Baghdad will start seeing some sort of peace and stability by the end of the summer. Only last night the spokesman for the military was saying that there had been an 80% decrease in attacks in Baghdad since the security plan started. So he was being a bit over-optimistic. But if you spoke to people around the capital, they did not really believe that. They thought there is a drop in violence right now. The armed groups are going to sort of retreat, regroup, and then they will attack again. They did not really believe that the violence had stopped, and actually today they were proven right.
That was Hoda Abdel Hamid in Baghdad. Meanwhile, the United States Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice has been meeting the Israeli Prime Minister ahead of Monday's three-way talks with the Palestinian president. Earlier,
Ehud Olmert told his cabinet that he and the US president had agreed to shun the new Palestinian government unless it recognises Israel. Well, let's get the latest now from our correspondent in Jerusalem, Barnaby Phillips. Barnaby, how will this unified US-Israeli stance play out in the three-way summit on Monday?
Well, I think the first thing I'd say is I'm not sure it is entirely as unified as the Israelis are portraying it. There are at least differences in style. We understand that Condoleezza Rice did tell President Abbas earlier today that she was willing to give this new Palestinian government a chance, wait for it to be formed before she passed judgment. But certainly you're right. On the broad issues, the Israelis and the Americans are as one. They are both insisting that this new government must accept the state of Israel, it must renounce violence, and it must accept, of course, previous agreements between the PLO and the Israelis. And that is, I think, leading to a sense of deep pessimism on the Palestinian side that anything meaningful can be achieved tomorrow.
Now, earlier, Secretary Rice met with President Mahmoud Abbas in Ramallah. She earlier said that the Mecca agreements and the coalition Fatah-Hamas government complicates relations now with President Mahmoud Abbas.
Well, it does from her point of view, of course, because America has put an awful lot of weight, an awful lot of importance on a particular relationship with President Abbas and leaving Hamas relatively isolated. Now, if Hamas and Fatah have come together, from the American point of view, that leads to a more complicated relationship. Of course, President Abbas told Condoleezza Rice that from his point of view, his duty above all was peace amongst the Palestinian people, and he appears, at least for the time being, to have achieved that at Mecca. He has brought the factions together, at least for the time being. There are obviously going to be difficulties ahead, but the message he's giving is give this government a chance and give us some financial aid.
So is Monday's meeting likely to produce any significant results?
I don't think there is an awful lot of optimism at the moment, no. I think what may be more interesting, perhaps, is the meeting in Berlin in Wednesday, when Condoleezza Rice meets other members of the quartet there, when she meets the Europeans, when she meets the United Nations and the Russians. You may see some interesting differences there. You may hear European voices saying, hold on a second, this is a time to reach out to the Palestinians. This is a time to ease the plight of the Palestinian people, to resume aid, and that may in turn bring a more flexible approach from Hamas, and perhaps from that point things can move forward in the weeks ahead. But as regards tomorrow in particular, I think there is a sense of gloom both on the Israeli and the Palestinian side.
Barnaby Phillips there in Jerusalem. Thanks very much.
Well, let's head to Africa now, where dozens of people have been arrested in Zimbabwe to head off what was meant to be a major opposition rally. Supporters of the opposition leader Morgan Tsvangirai had been given clearance by the country's High Court to hold the demonstration.
Al Jazeera is the only international television channel with a permanent presence in the country. Haru Matassa sent this report from the capital, Harare.
MDC supporters take to the streets in anger. We want change, they shout. We want change and we want it now. Half an hour later, another meeting point is found, and their leader, Morgan Tsvangirai, asked the police to let him through.
Today, a very simple court order. Unless you say, I'm defying the law.
The police refused to move and instead bring in reinforcements.
Police are coming with their canisters and water cannons, ready to disperse the crowd that's already here. And the people are very, very angry. They want some kind of change.
How do you disperse them without addressing them?
Officer, we are trying to reason with you, because there's no ways these people can be dispersed without addressing them.
He is warned to leave or riot police will tear gas his supporters. After hours of waiting to officially launch his presidential campaign, the MDC leader did what he said was the only sensible thing to do. On Saturday, a dozen of his supporters were arrested by police. He didn't want it to happen again.
The judge said I should address the people. The police feel that we cannot go in, we cannot address, but anyway, the struggle continues. Chinja! Maitiro! Chinja! Let's go.
MDC supporters dispersed reluctantly. They say they're frustrated, but they're not giving up. Haru Matassa, Al Jazeera, Harare.
A series of bomb explosions have rocked Thailand's restive south, killing 3 people, injuring more than 50 others. Hamish McDonald's following the story in a Kuala Lumpur news centre and gathering all the details as they come in. Hamish, what more do you know?
Thanks very much, David. We are starting to get more information now about the attacks. The total number of attacks has risen to 23 bomb blasts in those 3 southern provinces this evening. Now, the total number of dead, as you mentioned, is 3. Already we're hearing reports that at least 53 others were injured in those 3 provinces. It's the provinces of Narathiwat, Patani and Yala. They border Malaysia, and as we've mentioned many times before, there has been a Muslim insurgency raging in those southern provinces for at least the past 3 years.
Hamish, what is this going to mean to the interim government in Thailand only just a few months after taking office? Would it be a major concern to see this bubbling up again?
Well, it certainly will create difficulties for the new interim government. I mean, one of the reasons why the generals who staged the coup against the former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra, they named the insurgency in the south as one of the crucial factors. They said that only they, the military, could solve this problem, that Thaksin had lost control of the situation. They named it as the #1 priority. Surya Chalanon, when he spoke to Al Jazeera shortly after becoming the Prime Minister, he said that his singular aim over the coming 12 months would be to solve the problems in the south. There have been peace negotiations over recent months as well, involving the Thai authorities, also involving the Malaysian authorities. Indeed, the former Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad was involved in those talks to try and bring an end to the situation and get some clarity about what those insurgents in fact wanted. So the fact that these bombs have taken place this evening, 23 in what appear to be a coordinated series of attacks, is a pretty worrying sign for the leadership in Bangkok.
Hamish McDonald, thank you very much. Keep an eye on the story and come back to us when you have more, if you would.
A US military helicopter has crashed in Afghanistan, killing at least 8 US soldiers. The Chinook troop carrier came down in the district of Zabul, near the main highway between Kabul and Kandahar. At least 14 other soldiers were wounded. Well, Al Jazeera's James Bays in Kandahar says the US military is investigating all possible causes for the crash and hasn't ruled anything out.
An American military spokesman is saying that all they know is that this helicopter came down because of a sudden loss of engine power. Now, they say there was recent activity by the Taliban reported in the area, and so quite clearly they're not at the moment ruling out the possibility that this might have been shot down, but they're investigating all the possible options. The Chinook is very much the workhorse of the American military and also of NATO operating in Afghanistan. I was on a Chinook only yesterday. On that occasion it was ferrying people from one place to another, but it's also used to carry vital supplies and equipment, and very often these are transported to forward operation bases by air rather than by road, because the situation on the ground is not